Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Truth About Politics channel live, AISOM After Chat number 7. Last chat was pretty good, but unfortunately I think the topic was a little bit corny. Sorry, Shammer, bust out laughing. Alright, going to the external, we've got I Am Shammer, Annie Primo, Truth Vigilante, America Died 1913, Biting Abel, An Informed State of Mind. Oh, we got Smurf Killer 223. Welcome, sir. And that's about it. Certainly, many others will join, hopefully, and we can get a good chat going. And inside, we've got a very full panel. We've got An Informed State of Mind, Basic American, I Am Shammer, and Mark Herndon. Welcome, sir. I think we're going to do a little bit of intro for each one of you, starting with Mark. Sir, do you have anything to say as an intro?
No, not much. Appreciate the invite. Hope everybody's having a good night.
Excellent intro. I Am Shammer, you are up next, sir. Please. Intro.
Hello, everybody.
Excellent. Best one yet. Basic American. Sir, you're up next.
Let's see. My name is Basic American. My real name's Peter. So if you guys ever have a hard time remembering that, just remember male genitalia. I like long walks on the beach, usually with a beer. Listen to the soulful sounds of Shamer's videos. I recommend them. Gray Men series. I actually just finished them all, and they're pretty awesome. I'm pretty much just what my name is. I'm very basic. I'm American. Bought my first handgun the other day. If you're in the market for a handgun, you don't want to spend a whole lot. The Taurus P111 Millennium G2. Awesome handgun. I've put 300 rounds through it so far, not one problem yet. And it was $270, I think. Yeah. Well, I think I drug that out as long as I can. I'm running out of things to say. So.
Excellent. Mr. Luke from An Informed State of Mind. Ready? Go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Air Canada. I'll be your pilot for this evening. We'll be traveling at 35,000 feet. If you can please refrain from any kind of mile-high club activities in the bathroom, we'll enjoy the rest of the flight. Thank you.
Exits are the little red button at the top. Please fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a good chat. All right. Does anybody have any information about the recent cyber attack on personnel management that released hundreds of thousands of documents, supposedly, that would endanger all human life on the planet? Shammer, you're up first by default.
That's the first I've heard of it. Okay, that's not true. Yeah, I didn't expect you to. Okay, so there's a cyber attack in April on the Office of Personnel Management, which does 90% of the background checks and security clearances, top secret clearances for federal employees and military. And they're saying China did it, which is about as factual as it can be. And I thought maybe that conversation would go somewhere. The external might have something to say about it.
Well, finally I get to hear what they actually did when they were hacking. I was watching the news media, and they always say there's hacking, but they never say what they actually do.
Yeah, that's pretty common. They'll say what happened, but they won't say what was taken.
And now, who said it was China? And I mean, and I don't know. I'm just trying to elaborate on here. How do we know it's China?
We're saying it. Our government's saying it's China.
In your thought, do you think it's China, or could it be somebody else?
Oh yeah, they're famous for it. Now I don't know if the claim is Chinese government or a independent Chinese hacker, because there's independent hackers all over the world that go after our systems all the time that are not affiliated with their governments. They're just hackers.
So what's the real danger? I mean, what are they going to do with that info? Are they going to try and turn some agents or something? I mean, I really don't see the big super worry about it.
Well, when you do a top secret clearance, you got 10 years of personal information on there, and so they say they took tens of thousands of records, which usually means hundreds of thousands. A good number of those, I don't know what percentage, will be relatively recent, meaning they'll have, current, if not last year or two locations, duty stations, family members' names, contact information, phone numbers. For every place you've lived or every military duty station you have another reference that's not associated anywhere on the list. So if they take one person's information, they have at least addresses and phone numbers, most of which are accurate, and complete full names, and sometimes birth dates of another 30 or 40, 50 people. So if they take 10,000 records, let's say, which was more than that, they'd easily have 100,000, 200,000 or more people's information. So if they took 100,000, they could have a significant percentage of the population's personal information. Now they can sell that to other countries. If their government got it, they can use that as targets, intelligence targets, to go see who they are, get information on guys, figure out, because a lot of the security clearances will say where you work or what you're doing the clearance for. So you might currently work over here, you need it for here, you work over here, and it's because you've applied to a program, and they'll say all that information.
So basically, it's a very large amount of personal info that could possibly be used to do what?
Sell it, use it against us. I mean, recruit people, whatever they want to do. If they were to sell it to other nations, that'd be the worst thing. But what people don't realize is, like, the Pentagon itself has about 250,000 cyber attacks an hour. So they have 6 to 8 million a day, some days as much as 10 million. National Nuclear Security Administration for the Department of Energy has about 10 million hacks a day. The military itself has tens of thousands an hour across all military branches. The government's getting hit all the time. So one getting through isn't a huge surprise for the advancement of technology and how smart these guys are. It's just, I consider it a good success considering how many attacks are done. And that's against multiple networks.
And so what's the course of action that the U.S. would take in a particular confirmed hack, when they can confirm that this was the branch or the country? What's their response, if any?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think it depends on the situation. I mean, they're going to work with that government, contact that government, whatever the government says, whatever either government says public doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're really saying privately. You know, like China's saying they're going to do an investigation on it, but who knows? I mean, I don't know. There's too many variables out there.
You know, one would think that information that important, especially top secret, you wouldn't have on an open network. You would put it on our highest crypto or whatever, or person to person. I don't see the wisdom in putting it in an area where it can be hacked, and they know it can be hacked.
Oh, any network can be hacked, and while there's millions of attacks all the time, the ones that usually get through are on the most secure networks, because that's what the pros go after. And that's what the governments go after, and that's what top hackers go after. That's how they get their credentials. I mean, anybody can hack. Anybody with hacking skills that's a hacker can figure out how to get into at least the open DoD network, or even an intranet on an installation. But getting into like OPM or even an intelligence agency, I mean, that's a big deal.
Because I was thinking, and I probably shouldn't say too much more than, in the Navy it seemed like they had ways to handle that kind of stuff, and I've read a lot here over the last several years about the government using frequencies way outside of normal communications, that we use out here, and I would think they would figure something out with like a hidden frequency to transmit stuff like that.
They probably have. I don't really know a lot about it. But I mean, you got to figure tens of millions a day. I mean, 20 million just between two agencies. So this could be 50, 60, 100 million, who knows? While some of those are probably computer programs modifying themselves or servers or something, a lot of them are people writing stuff doing it. So in any case, there's more people attacking than we have people defending, and we don't really have the manpower to create the defense.
Could that be what they've been wanting to get all the new funding for, and they're calling it hacking prevention, but they're actually just want to create a new way to communicate in secret, I guess?
That's probably part of it. Wouldn't surprise me. Most of the things they do, the government does, is hire hackers. A lot of guys that are hackers that get busted get approached by the government all the time to work for them. Some of them do it. A lot of the civilians in the NSA, for example, or in the NetCom, Network Command, that are younger, are basically computer geniuses out of colleges or program writers, app developers, worked at software companies, or hackers. We don't have the training to train our own people to do that stuff. We use the guys that do it.
That's interesting. What would stop the guys that originally tried to hack from taking the inside route, so to speak, and well, basically exposing a lot more information than they could simply by hacking from the outside?
Probably depends on who they are and what they find. I mean, if they're not going after personnel management, you get all this information on federal employees, military. So if a government did it, that has value to them. If an independent hacker did it, they're probably disappointed. They probably don't even know how to sell it. I mean, if you hack into a server in some agency or military and you can find documents and mission plans and orders and classified cables, that kind of stuff would probably get released. People eat that up all. It depends on who the hacker's working for. Are they independent? Are they working for a left-wing or right-wing extremist group? Are they working for a government? Are they working for hire? I mean, that probably all determines. That's what I would think.
Seems like you could get really devious and confusing with it in a, like have the information that they steal, but like kind of code that, I don't know, upside down, and you have your own secret information on the bottom of that, and they're just reading the surface of it. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it just seems like a wild computer engineering idea to do crypto new or something.
I agree. I mean, I don't really understand it all. But I mean, if somebody's got hundreds of thousands of, or even tens of thousands of classified applications, which probably leads to hundreds of thousands of individuals, it'd be hard to move it. You'd almost have to be doing it for hire, because if you did it and just ended up with it, I mean, it's going to be looked for. So it's probably hard to sell that information. If it's an independent person, if it's a government, if the Chinese government did it, then they're just going to keep it for themselves. I mean, we do all that stuff too.
Yeah, that's a good point. The U.S. hacks as well. It's kind of makes sense once you realize how much info we actually have on China and Russia. A lot more than everybody thinks.
And here we call it a freedom hack.
Yeah. Well, if a Chinese citizen does it, he's not going to be able to sell it to the Chinese government. They're going to take it and call him a patriot. They're not going to pay him. That's not how the government works. And they're not going to they could probably sell it to another country, but they probably really have to know what they're doing or have the connections, because if China figured it out, they probably consider him a traitor selling enemy secrets to somebody else. That's just how the government works.
Messed up.
Yeah, I still don't really see what they're. I guess there could be something ultimately that would be super dangerous about it, but I don't know. These people run around saying they can melt down a nuclear reactor somewhere. I don't think so. But that's just my opinion because of what I've worked around in my past. So I don't know. I don't think it's true. I think they're
I
just
don't
fear
know.
mongering again.
Go ahead.
So, Chamber, now that they have all these other, how do we react to that? Are we going to move all these people around if they know their locations now and they got their phone number and such so forth? Or are we just gonna see how this plays out?
Well, all of it's historical information over the last 10 years of whenever the applications went through. So there's really nothing they can do with them. But all those people would have been notified before it even went public.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was in the military, I got emails all the time. I had to go check records and check my credit for changes because my information had got taken. For example, in the military, they do what they call decentralized promotion boards. So when you're working up to the senior non-commissioned officer ranks, all your information goes to a central location where all these sergeant majors look at it and decide who's going to get promoted. But they don't do it on a server. What they do is they have hard drives that they download the information to, and then they physically carry these hard drives. Well, some asshole lost them once, and there was thousands upon thousands of people's records in there. So it had all their military training, would be a big deal depending on what hands it got into, who they were, where they lived, how much they were paid, all this kind of stuff, pictures of them, their professional evaluations, all this kind of stuff. So that happened. Social Security's been hacked before, I think. Other government agencies, but at least twice, but maybe 3 times I got notified my stuff was possibly compromised.
That was a CIA guy, wasn't it, that lost the laptop?
Yeah, there was that too. There's several laptops been lost. The one I was talking about was a military thing, but yeah, that's happened.
Just lost. Are we saying this legitimately guy forgot where he put it, or you think he sold the shit?
Oh, they'd probably know. The military police do the security and interrogation facilities. So I get this thumb drive handed me. I go and get this officer fired because he left it in the chow hall in Iraq. And it had all the personal information on his entire platoon that secured that facility, as well as company information, standard name lines, phone numbers, all this stuff. But more importantly, it had the entire list of detainees that had been in and out of that facility for like 2 years, including their numbers, which ones had became intelligence sources, what they had said. Well, not really what they had said, but personal information on them, how long they've been there, and where they went. So he was fired.
Wow.
Yeah, those in the chow halls there, they had foreign nationals working in them, at least the ones in Kuwait, anyways. I guess they were Indian nationals from the nation of India.
Yeah, and the chow halls are typically Indians or Fijians, depending on where they're at, or the time frame. Early in the war, a lot were Fijians, but became Indians. They contract out to different countries to do different things. But those guys are a lot more trustworthy than the local nationals that cleared to come work on the installation and install internet and sell phones or sell food or cut hair.
It's amazing how much problems most of these problems can be solved by simply taking a pencil and a piece of paper and writing it down.
You can lose
and
that.
putting it in storage. Yeah, you can also lose a little thumb drive. I mean, something this big, or something this big.
Yeah, but I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of records will fit on that thumb drive. How many damn notebooks you gonna need for that? you storing this at your house?
Well, I mean, one upside to paper is if it's classified material. Of course, there's a lot of confidential information you don't want out there. But if it's classified material, it never leaves that facility unless it's with a courier. So it gets stored in the facility. But there's all kinds of confidential information that's not classified. All your personnel records. Like a military unit's going to have your name, your position, a little family tree of your unit with phone numbers just for a contact roster. It's going to have all your personal information, clothing sizes. I mean, they get all kinds of crap on you that they use all the time. They have to keep updated. So that's a lot of stuff that could lead to anything. But that's part of the reason why the U.S. military went to no thumb drives. Probably around, most of it got changed by around 2009. Redid a lot of networks and shut those USB ports down, so you cannot use thumb drives or anything like that.
I was kind of curious about that, whether or not they'd actually put some kind of limitations on stuff like that, because thumb drives certainly, are extremely small. I mean, that's a thumb drive for my mouse, but I mean, certainly you could probably get thumb drives that small that would carry information just on a thumb drive. Not to mention little SD cards that you can get.
Yeah, micro USBs are small, and you can get those things in like 32, 64 gigs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That much data on such a small card. It's
Mind
It's a
blowing.
wonder our security hasn't been breached for the whole world to see.
I'm sure that shit happens all the time, though.
Yeah.
Kind of like a barn with no doors on it. They're wondering where all the animals went.
Like to go out there and just metal detect around those government buildings and see what other stuff gets dropped in the mud and stuff.
Yeah, there's probably a lot. Well, some places take it pretty seriously, like some of the intelligence schools have training materials that have classifications on them, so you can learn how to use classified material and how to handle it. And it'll be secret, no foreign, or TS or whatever. So it's training material. Now, in some schools, they use legitimate information so that they can use maps, but the scenario that they have information on is usually completely fabricated. So even if it's 100% fake, it's still a training material. And if you lose positive control of that or leave it out somewhere, a lot of schools will kick you out. Some places you lose your career over it. Some places you get another chance, depending on what the school is. Like in the counterintelligence course, there's no chances. You screw up once, you're done. Like, it happened all the time, every class, but I remember some female captain went to the library with a classified notebook that she took out of class she wasn't supposed to have, made photocopies, and then left some of the papers there. And she fought hard, but she was told the whole way she was going home.
It's amazing.
Well, I mean, you got to safeguard this stuff, right? So, I mean, if you mess it up basically in the training end of things, I mean, again, you can look at it also in the training aspect of things. If this is where you're going to make your mistakes and learn from them. Hopefully, you don't make them out there. But again, something like that, there's major screw ups, and then there's the ones that can say, okay, that can be we can pass with that, But yeah, that one. That's a good example of one that I don't think you're going to be able to look over. You're gone.
Yeah.
So what's the next topic?
Let's go with Jade Helm. I'm rolling with topics I know absolutely nothing about tonight.
Jade
Hacking.
what now?
Jade
You know
Helm.
nothing about Jade Helm?
I'm just playing.
Apparently not nearly as much as everybody thinks I should know. Because, it's not actually a martial law ploy. It's actually just to get American citizens used to seeing troops on the streets.
Okay. Now this is what I've been hearing people argue. They need to get troops there, but they have bases, and I've also heard the argument. They have bases with mock cities, just like the Russians do, and yada yada. And then they say, well, they need to train with the local people along with the police departments, help them overseas, and et cetera, so forth. I don't see that. You're going to train with people who are, all speak English. I don't see. I suppose I could see it, but there's other ways to do it that would be better. That wouldn't freak the shit out of everybody. But I also don't think they were intentionally trying to scare anybody. I think they're when the military addressed it and whatnot, they seemed generally surprised that everybody went crazy about it. Like, they seemed like they were generally shocked.
Well, it's nothing new. I mean, exact type of unconventional warfare training they've been doing for decades. And they go into the communities, tell them what they want to do, ask them for permission, they vote on it. A lot of them have been turned down. It's been in the news. They didn't want them there. And granted, even in a small municipality somewhere, if they want to go train there, not everybody's going to know about it. Even if they put it out in the newspaper, put it on the news, not everybody's going to see it. Of course, some people aren't going to like it. But some of the training, I don't know what all the missions are, but like in Arizona, one of the things they're doing, they're hiring people for, is these guys are going to move around in parts of Arizona trying to go undetected to get from point A to point B without ever being seen. So some of the people that are getting hired or have either travel trailers or horse trailers or large trucks that move goods that they're going to meet and hide in and try not to get caught by whoever would search them or whatever. That's just one thing. I don't know what they're all doing. But it's nothing new.
So why do you think everyone's making a fuss over this one?
Well, they make a fuss out of all of them. It's just this one is a lot of things happening at once in a large geographic area. It's not the largest by number. It's just the largest geographical area. And several places in the country know about it. So there's enough alternative and bits of local news here, and here, everywhere that it becomes a national story and more people are hearing about it. But anytime stuff like this happens, there's always going to be, martial law or whatever. It's like the hacking thing we talked about. All kinds of people think that's messed up. We did it, or it's fake, or it's a false flag. And that stuff always is going to come out. People are always going to say that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it look like I think they're up to something, because chances are they're probably doing what they're saying they're doing. I mean, I don't think we're there yet, and I don't think that's how it would be. But it's still something. I don't like it. Like, I'm not a big fan of it at all.
Yeah, understandable. I understand it. I understand people's concerns.
Well, I don't know. It seems like it's I don't know. All you need is one concealed carry guy to not know about this and freak the hell out because he sees armed troops walking around. Or I'm not down there, so I don't know what they're dressed up as. But I think it's easy to make a mistake there.
It can happen. You can probably, it's not classified, but you can find it somewhere. They do Robin Sage out at Camp McCall and surrounding area around Fort Bragg for Special Forces. Their field problem before they get their Green Beret. And they work with local cops and all this. But there was a time there when I don't remember the exact details, so take what I say loosely, but you can find the story. It's in the newspaper. A couple of students had a run-in with a sheriff, deputy, something like that, and there was a shooting. The cop was not a role player. He didn't know anything about it. And I think the students got off course and were outside their area. Either that or the cop wasn't supposed to be there. Not like it was his fault, just like it wasn't expected. It's something like that. And I think somebody died. I think one of the students died or they got seriously hurt. So there's been things that have happened, and the potential exists. I don't think it's huge potential, but it's one of those things that if it goes wrong and happens, there's no acceptable answer for it. So much silence.
So basically, what you're saying is that it's worth the risk. It's calculable risk. It's minimal risk. The probabilities are extremely low. Therefore, it's reasonable.
That's definitely the argument they'd put out. I would support that argument. I think it's necessary training. I don't have an issue with it myself. And I'm trying not to make fun of people who think it's martial law anymore. I don't think that's fair. Some of them just, there's different reasons why people think that. But if you're out there and you think it's martial law, I would just start preparing your stories now on when it doesn't happen, what your response to that's going to be, whether it's flip-flop like a politician and say you never believe that, or it's a dry run and they're going to do it another time. But start working on your story.
Oh, you'll notice it's always a dry run. Every time, it's always a dry run.
Yeah.
After it happens, before it happens,
Well, shit
it's
like
the real
this
deal.
goes,
And then
feel
it's
like
a dry
this
run.
goes down, and I'm not in the know-how in any way, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not, But but I do know that there's always the potential. Like it could maybe. So I still want to know about it, and I'm still going to be a little bit leery of it. But I don't think anything crazy is going to come of it.
Yeah, just look up the locations where it's happening, and one by one, just start doing Google searches. You'll find probably city council records on it, YouTube videos. You'll find the different PowerPoint slides that they provide on what they're going to be doing. And then when you figure out the exact county or towns that they're specifically going to be at or locations, look for jobs in those areas, and you'll find role player jobs they're hiring, which the details of those role player jobs will give you a lot of information on what mission they're training for, what they're actually saying that they're going to be doing. And people do that. If people put the legwork in and know when it's happening, they've got nothing better to do or time to kill. They can go out there and probably watch them on some of the exercises or see them. Some of them you'll never be able to find them, but that can always be done.
Yeah, I know
I'd
one
like
of the
to-
companies that's doing the hiring for role-playing personnel is called West FX. They're it's a company based out of California. It's kind of like I guess it's like a movie effects company, but they also put out the hiring. They hire and they keep track of now basically actors for these drills. And what they'll do is they'll give them weapons with blanks. They'll give them camo, and they'll send them out there and basically act like an opposing force or something of the sort.
Right.
And you know, I don't know why. To all those who think it's going to be a martial law, I'm not saying that it's not. It's very low probability in my mind. Why would they hire people? Why would they be putting out notices, hey, we're going to be working in this area at this specific time with this many people, and we need this many people to help us do this? And
Well, I mean, I see it as almost I've been sitting here trying to think of a word for it, but I guess irresponsible is the closest thing I can think of right now. But you see everybody freaking out, buying shit tons of guns and ammo and whatnot, and then you go down south and you say, hey, we're going to run a military exercise in all these states, and you didn't expect a backlash? Like, you didn't expect people to freak out? Like, and there wasn't another avenue? I don't know a whole hell of a lot about military, so Shimmer, did they have an alternative to something like this that would be a similar training exercise that would be just as good? Or was this the only way they were going to learn how to do this?
Well, I'd first say they probably expected a backlash. They probably just didn't expect a backlash to go to the level to require them to do a press briefing. I don't think they expected. They were probably directed by somebody in the DOD or the administration, like, you're going to do a briefing on this. Nobody probably expected that. I would say that a lot of this happens all over all the time. I mean, there's a thing, and I don't know how many years ago it was, in San Francisco, where it was like 4,000 Marines or something went into San Francisco and did some training in that area. So it happens all over the country. Considering the type of units doing it, I think a lot of it's like they're saying it's terrain they're dealing with that matches terrain in places they're probably going to be going or are going. But some of the events are simultaneous, so maybe they could be working on coordination and communication. I don't really know. But they all have facilities, but you can't just say they can go use those facilities. You know, one installation might have a mount site, but they probably already have, like, Fort Lewis has a nice mount site, but they have 6 infantry brigades there, at least 3 of which are there at all times, that are constantly using it, not to mention all the other units that go and use it. So the SF guys in the range battalion out there, they got to vie for position, you know, to get that too. But if they're not solely just training, going in and assaulting buildings, then they need to create that environment. So for some of the missions, I'm sure this probably was the best way to do it. I don't know the details of all their missions.
How about, I'm reading Smurf Killer out there, and he sounds like he's describing a possible, like, a Red Dawn scenario. And I don't know, I was discussing it with somebody else. I don't remember if you were involved in that. Do you think that's a possibility? Maybe they're, well, he says dry run, but maybe not dry run, maybe just staging. Or
Most of what they're doing is unconventional warfare. A lot of it is counterinsurgency, nation building, foreign incursion type stuff, where they're either going in and meeting people to try to gain their trust and train them for some type of coup, insurgency. Anyway, it's something to fight tyranny, essentially. Or they could be going in just to practice moving from state to state in certain manners. It depends. But the types of missions they're doing aren't geared towards what a martial law scenario would be. They're geared towards actually fighting tyranny. It's more in our favor to do those missions if it was nefarious in nature, because it would mean that they're there to train people on the ground. And there's a lot of people that would need training here. Militias, any local person, hell, National Guard and Reserve units, even with their combat arms, don't do their jobs very well, and some of them are 104 years old.
I mean, I have no doubt that basically some of these training facilities that would be atypically used, certainly, or even used by civilian law enforcement agencies, SWAT, special tactics units, so on. Again, not to mention Homeland Security, Border Patrol, perhaps. So I could see that, and I could definitely see the idea of the benefit of utilizing just real-time environments. So I could understand that as being a support aspect of it. Do you think there's any aspect? Again, I've kind of wondered about the idea of that these units that are being told that they're going to be utilizing these particular divisions or whichever they've been doing the training. Could they actually be units that would be specializing in continuity of government? So basically, these guys could go in and actually pull specific government people out of an area if civil unrest took place.
The general idea what you're saying is a possibility. I don't think that's what it is. But there's already a plan in place for continuity government and extraction of important people and how to get them. That plan exists already. If they wanted to change the plan or rehearse it, they would just go do it. They would go do the exercise wherever those people are.
Right. Now, let's just suggest, though, if they were looking at it from the idea of, well, we'll work with some of the people's comments stating that, what's staging. So if they were staging for this, there was a potential, you know what I mean? They knew that maybe there was going to be, an unfolding economic collapse. They could end up, really hitting home in certain areas, and they're going to say, okay, we're going to stage these people in this area. So we have the manpower, certainly. There's already coexisting plans and so on. But isn't it also possible that, is there anywhere in history that we've had people in training doing so on, and all of a sudden the mission changes? We've got a situation that's popped up. You're now being pulled away from training immediately, and we're now going to be, we're going hot with this particular issue. And it just so happens we've got the divisions and the right people in the right place at the right time.
I suppose it's possible, but staging would mean they're putting people or equipment there to sit there until they need it. So these guys would have to not be deploying, which I don't remember the specific ones, but some of the units I looked at just to cross-reference were actually deploying. Does that mean the exact 5, 10, 20 people they're sending on that mission is? Not necessarily, but they probably are. But that's kind of how I look at it. I mean, essentially the way their military is spread across the country, they're already pre-staged for a lot of that stuff. So it would make more sense to say special operations units are being staged for extraction of important people or to train our populace than it would be to say stage for an invasion. We already have military forces in place for that.
And this is what I've kept coming back to, that idea, right? Again, there would have to be a catalyst for something to be, creating a martial law. You know what I mean? And again, we've already talked about that on a particular show of Informed State of Mind, and what that would actually take, what that would involve, what kind of staging, what assets they would see is important, how what the give and take would take place in a particular city with a martial law unfolding. I don't think it supports it, the numbers and so on. We've also talked about the idea of them being in there as trainers or facilitators for maybe whether it was National Guard or whether it was Homeland Security or whether it was departmentalized police services and specialized police service departments or divisions to carry out some kind of limited martial law or containment of a civil unrest as it popped up on a grid, for instance. And we've talked about that, but I see it that if there was something nefarious about Jade Helm, I would. We talked about it before. Some of these guys are basically meant to go in and tear down tyrannical governments, and stabilize an area potentially. Is that correct? Some of these units would.
Yeah, that's general
So
idea.
so again, this is why I don't think it's too far fetched to suggest that if there was some kind of major crisis that took place in American soil, that they would be staged in a particular friendly area to be able to fly in, to, deploy within the parameters of the United States or land, and assist in the continuity of specific sectors of government. That would be crucial, or even an extension of what's already in place.
Of all those possibilities, the only one I think is realistic would be that they are there to train us. I don't think the other ones are. I mean, anything can happen, but I don't think they're that realistic. One of the things Ann wrote in the external was they train where they fight. I don't agree with that at all. You can go on the internet and find for years information, as well as publicly released information in California where Navy SEALs storm the beaches where people are sitting out there suntan in their bikinis. It happens all the time. Marines do landings in Virginia, all kinds of places on the East Coast all the time where citizens are, and it's been going on for years. I mean, all over North Carolina, several states around there, part of the Delta courses, they do land nav over several states, been going on forever. I've done training like that. I've done all kinds of intelligence training. I do is always out in the population, and none of it's geared towards that's where we're going to do it. So I don't think that statement's accurate at all. I mean, if it was accurate, what that would mean is we would never train. We would just go to a country and hope we have enough time to train before we get our asses kicked in the fight, because that's the only place we would train. So that, to me, that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Here's the other thing that disturbs me about these people who are presenting the plans and so on, are trying to sell it to the individual counties or cities or towns or whatever the case is. I've seen a couple of YouTube videos of these guys actually addressing this at a briefing or whichever the case is, and these guys are supposedly know everything that's going on. It's absolutely painful to listen to them explain what their drill or their sector is supposed to be doing in their particular town. It's like this guy just get an envelope that morning and say, yeah, you're going over here to talk to this little town in Texas and you're going to sell them on the idea. Put their minds at ease. And I've watched a couple of YouTube videos going, are you serious? This guy can't articulate this? It's incredible.
Well, part of it is because they're special operations units, some of the questions really are geared towards, well, what kind of tactics are they going to use is what they're asking. How are they actually going to do this? And some of those questions they have to try to figure out how to answer them because they can't share that information. And of course that makes it look bad because people say they're hiding something. Well, they are hiding. It's classified. Or they say there's no transparency, or that means it's bad. And there's always people that are always going to believe that it's bad. So they're never going to be satisfied with it. But I would not want that job. That job would suck.
My understanding, and I could be I could be wrong, I should say. I don't have to overcomplicate that. My understanding was the Green Berets were, if we were at time of war and there's a possibility of invasion, that's when they would train militias. I never thought, I never heard anything about them training, just for the hell of it.
Oh, everybody trains all the time. I mean, you could say just for the hell of it. Sometimes it is just for the hell of it. But that's one of the things that Special Forces does. The Marines do it too. MARSOC does it. Is go in and train a civil population, militia, unrecognized military, whatever, to resist a bad government, try to take it over, or in some cases, like with drug cartels, we use one to take out the other. So that's something they could do here. If they did it, it would basically, when they do it, something's already happening, whether anybody knows about it or not.
Now, could this just be training for them for what they do? Could this be like them training our militia, if that's indeed what's going on? Could that be training for them for what they do overseas by training, militants and other? Yeah, I might be using the wrong terminology by saying militants, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it would. I mean, they're selling it as whatever they're doing is they're training for what their real missions are, which I believe. I don't think, though, that they're actually going to. I don't think any of their missions are or will be training any organized or unorganized groups in our country. When they do train for that, they have a large number of contractors that are all former special operations people that act like those civil populations, and then they go in and train them because those guys are their instructors, their cadre, they're the ones grading and evaluating them, and it's better to do that as the person who's supposed to be trained in that situation than it is to stand on the side with the clipboard and take notes while they're training, you know, some whatever guy.
You know, perhaps I'm a bored masochist, but I'd like to see these goofballs in charge try and impose martial law in the United States, because I think we would all die laughing at the complete cluster, you know, that they would create there. I think they would fail worse than they have in Iraq.
You mean our military?
No, our government. I have no issues with military. It's the people running everything in the government.
Oh, you mean like if we had like a coup?
Yeah, well, whoever it would be that would decide to impose martial law. If you're talking about corrupt government, not military.
Yeah, I mean, for the government to do it on a large scale, one of the greatest difficulties will be getting the military on board. And your first challenge is getting several generals and admirals on board. And even if they are, you have hundreds of thousands of troops. And then you have to consider, you know, where does the country divide? What if an entire installation that covers a corps or several divisions says we're not playing ball? Well, now you got a military enemy. So yeah, it'd be difficult. I mean, that's the most difficult part about it. I mean, the presumption is that martial law will happen so easily, but yet at the same time people say, well, majority of troops aren't going to participate. Well, if a person really believes that the vast majority of the troops are not going to participate, then why are they afraid of martial law? Because if 70% of the troops just go home and say, fuck it, 30% ain't enough, especially when they're all spread out like that.
Yeah, martial law would take an incredible amount of people.
That'd be an interesting show right there. Just take all these scenarios and run through them. Try to figure out how they might play out.
That would be an interesting show.
And I don't know what your comment means, so if you want to expound on that. Yeah, Smurf brought up continuity of government. Well, I'm presuming he means one thing, he might be something else. But the continuity government plan, for those who don't truly understand it, is a plan to quickly and securely move government and military leadership into multiple locations so that in whatever event we still have a functioning government. So just like there's a plan for president, vice president, speaker of the House, and then it goes through a list of Senate or cabinet members, and then to whoever, you know, it's a long list. The military has that same stuff too. All federal agencies have it. And the plan is for how they'll be split up, where they'll go, how they're going to get there, who's secure, and what location they'll go to, whether it's underground, above ground, whatever. So that's the continuity of government plan, just in case somebody doesn't understand it.
It says I'd be ready and prepared, the goon taking my weapon and surrender. It would depend. If they ever, I wouldn't say martial law, but if there ever was a gun grab, and they came to your door, it would depend on what fashion they did it. If they came to the whole neighborhood and they rolled around asking everybody for their guns, then you might have a little bit of an uprising. If the word got around fast enough, everybody knew they were coming. Then that's where you take it from my cold dead hand. But if they came to your door directly and said, hey, we're here for your guns, give them your damn gun. Otherwise, you're just going to get shot. You're going to be some crazy person who got shot. Do what I do. I have a few guns in my house, but I also have a couple at my buddy's house, and I have a couple at another buddy's house. I got a couple at my brother's house. I don't keep them all in my house. And they do the same. If anything were to ever happen, plus, I don't have to have them all here. It's just, if you're really worried about that kind of stuff, think about it. Bury it in your wall if you want. Oh.
Yeah, I agree.
Generally, I agree. If there was a martial law situation and it was a military unit, especially if they were active duty, and there's several of them with weapons, searching houses, if you can't get out of there, they're going to search your house no matter how nice you are, no matter how many guns you give them. So you have to presume that. You also need to presume they're going to find your shit. Unless you got a large property and you got stuff buried 3 feet in the ground, spread all over the place. They're going to probably find it. And the results of lying to them, even if you don't get arrested, just could possibly put you in as a person who's not, cooperative. Who knows? But another thing is, in my mind, that's not the time to stand your ground and exercise your rights. Because they know what your rights are, but it don't matter. You're not going to talk them out of it. And if you try to exercise your rights and say no, and it becomes a situation where you get shot, you're not going to become a martyr. I mean, people will say you're a martyr, but nobody's going to know about it. And it defeats the whole purpose. So in that extreme of a situation, I would agree it would be better just to cough it up, which is why you should, like you have, a plan in place already where you have stuff prepared. Like I've said it on a chat before, if you have firearms that you've purchased at a dealer and you have firearms you've purchased from somebody else that don't require paperwork tracking, those are the firearms you hide. The ones you bought from a dealer, you need to be able to present or provide information of why it's been sold. Now, in some places like Arizona, you can just sell person to person, so you don't have to provide that. And so that would be accepted probably. But if you're in a place that requires a transfer of guns, or places like Nevada where people are really big on doing the transfer at the police station with their blue cards and stuff, that's probably a gun you should keep in the safe that you give them access to and let them take. And then those ones you buy from your buddy, you hide.
I have a bite enabled. I sold you guns, buddy. Sorry, I need some money to party. Again, that's why I don't store them all in one place. I can take care of that son of a bitch who sold my guns. No, I mean that's also why I got some of his. And for a while there, I was very guarded about what I do. But if everybody did the same damn thing, and that's why they're not all at my brother's house, because I was worried. If they thought I did have guns, that'd probably be the first place they'd check would be my relatives. If I got guns, chances are my family's pro-gun. So that's why I went to buddies, and I got some of theirs, and I just had a discussion about it, and pretty much I'm just borrowing their gun while they borrow mine. And it's something that I think would, if nothing else, you get to play with a new gun. It can't hurt.
You all have me thinking about the stuff that was going on in Boston after the Boston bombings, and I don't know how long that went on, but it seemed like it ended pretty quick right after it became national knowledge that they were going house to house and searching. Does anyone know more in depth about how long and how much they did there on that?
Where was that? I'm sorry, I was reading something.
It was Boston, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the Boston bombers.
When
They
you're
were
looking for
rolling
the
around in
bombers?
an MRAV and shit.
I don't know the details on it. I remember there was people saying they freaking out because cops were going through their yard to get to another yard, going some places that went door to door. They probably searched some places. I don't think they searched every place. I don't think they had the manpower for it. And some people were just saying, the cops were saying, go inside, stay inside. Some people were happy about that when they found out what it was. Some people weren't. I don't know. I can tell you that all the different pieces that I've read from people that were living there, that were saying stuff, and the image or the videos I saw looked the same to me as how it's typically done. I mean, I'd been bombed or IED'd and then had to go search places, and it looks like what we did. We never went to all the houses. I don't know. I don't know how long it took though.
They go to places places of interest. For instance, if there was little flags, something that's going to tip them off to the idea they need to search that, whether it's direction of travel or whatever the case is, they're narrowing things down, cordoning off blocks or whatever the case is, trying to maintain perimeters and such, and they close in those perimeters. And certainly the law will will support, depending on where you're located and which law you're looking at, it'll support the idea of law enforcement and emergency services accessing your property to pass through or to have an active search. It'll be totally lawful. And if you interfere with that, certainly that could be interfering with a lawful investigation or impeding an officer or emergency service in the pursuit of justice, for instance. So many different wording and such like that, and then that's completely normal, right? If they have reason to believe there's something in your house, do they need a warrant for that? Well, that depends. That depends on, again, the United States. I can't speak of the United States. I can speak to Canada, but for instance, on a warrant for an individual, if they see that person through the window, if you open the door and they see the individual in the living room beyond you, they don't need a warrant. They see the person there, they can enter the home, right, and take that individual without a warrant, right? If they see the person run into your house, they can come right through the front door and pursue them, and if you intervene in that, you're gonna pay the piper. So I don't know. And telling people to stay in their home, again, it's just there's a safety aspect of it. It's not. Again, you can call it martial law. It's trying to secure the playing field, right? You're trying to minimize confusion, and I understand that. I've been involved in that, certainly. I mean, I've said the words: stay in your home, stay in your apartment, whatever the case is.
Well, using the Boston bombing as an example, if it was me and there's a bunch of cops running around with ARs or whatever they're doing, and I'm like, what the fuck? And they say, go inside your house, don't let anybody in, close the doors, close the windows. I'm going to do it because it tells me two things. One, they ain't there for me. And two, there's something bad enough out there that requires that amount of action, or at least they believe so. And for me, that'll be good enough. And I don't see that as infringing upon my rights.
The outer chat's exploding with.
Oh, I'm sure it is. People have the opinion that if cops do anything like that, it's infringing on the rights, and I just think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm a pretty big constitutionalist and whatnot, but we're pretty so far gone that I think you need to pick and choose your battles. When I first started hearing about Jade Helm, I responded just like everybody else. I freaked the fuck out. What the hell is going on? And when I realized it wasn't an immediate, shit wasn't going down right now, then I was like starting to talk to everybody else, like, hey, what the hell is going on? And I'm still doing that. No. Oh, go ahead. So my bad. Go ahead.
This is probably the most important thing I'll ever say to anybody on here, at least to date. Generally, we're all on the same side. Maybe we have differing views, but we are a side. We aren't losing because of who's president. We aren't losing because of certain laws. We are losing because too many of us try to fight everything all the time. And that is the exact plan on how you always lose. People don't pick their battles, like you said. They don't plan it out. They don't think smartly about it. We assume, as a whole, if we don't like it, it is therefore infringing on our rights because anybody can read the Constitution and understand it. Well, that's ridiculous, and that's how you lose. We need to stop fighting every little thing and put our energy into the areas that are smart, that are going to make a difference. It makes more sense as a group for us to put in all the correct right steps, even if it's protesting, like actually protesting, not rioting, against things like the Freedom Act and the Patriot Act, than it does to ignore that stuff or the amount of effort it adequately deserves and go after every scenario talked about or that happens and spend hours and hours and hours about. I think the fact that a cop who was chasing somebody after a bombing that's a suspect told me to go in my house and went through my yard is infringing on my rights. Or like you said, if they come to your house to search for guns and they're going to take your guns and it's an actual martial law situation, you're not going to win that battle.
Hey, let me, to add to that, maybe just to articulate it a little bit further, right? Because I think you are saying the same thing, is that we have to really define what an infringement of our rights is and be sure that it is an actual infringement. I would agree. There's many things that qualify to support that statement of an infringement upon our rights, or a teardown, or an interference, certainly, or a perversion of them to a degree. But there is some things that are certainly supported by the laws that we have in place, right? And within constitutions, or within our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, certainly, there is some rights that you have that will be suspended in the pursuit of the justice system. It's there. It's always been there. It may have been worded differently, but the reality is that it is supported. So therefore, it is not an infringement upon your rights. If I arrest you, right, I'm qualified to arrest you, certainly, and take your freedom away from you, to stop your free will to move about, because it is a pursuit of the justice system, right? A pursuit of justice. And as long as I do certain things in that pursuit, it's qualified, right? And I agree with Shammer on that aspect. There's certain things that you have to be clear on, right? Now, I would suggest it's not so easy, though, because there's certain things that, even if it is a clear infringement, how do you actually fight against it? We don't have the tools as individuals, and even as small groups. So that's just it.
So what's the plan? That's the question from Annie in the chat room. What's the plan?
What do you mean, what's the plan? Are you saying, because I seen you said something about Shammer being a fed, are you asking Shammer how he's going to steal all of our guns? Or are you asking us what's our plan if it goes down? Because if Shammer, you're going to come after my guns, I want to know what your plan is too, yeah.
Shammer, what's your plan? You going to take all my guns?
If you want to know my plan, if something goes down.
I've got two very, very small ones. They're barely 22s.
If she's asked, she can't possibly be asking that. That'd be the dumbest thing ever written.
Tell us, Shammer. Tell us. When is enough enough? Look, here's the way I go down. Right now, I am all about the Constitution. I am all about the federal government. In my eyes, most of it is unconstitutional. But I'm not the crazy person who throws it all out there. I know it, but I'm not I'm not going nuts. Like I'm there with you. A lot of the shit really pisses me off. That's why I'm here. It's a lot of it really pisses me off, and I'm trying to figure out how we fix it. I think most of us are. We're in a fucking hole, and we're trying to get out. But if I see stuff go down, first and foremost is my family. I get them safe, right? So my father-in-law has a bad leg. He's literally got a fake leg, so he's not going to be able to join militia or anything like that. But he's more than capable, just as much as I am, to protect my family. Then I trust him, so I'm going to take my family to my father-in-law. And I have a group of buddies. Like I said, we're all like-minded. We swap guns, and because after something like that goes down, you don't really want to be traveling around by yourself. And this is just something that we talked around and bullshitted. It's nothing set in stone, because you're going to need to be able to bend and twist to a different situation. And if something like that happens, then I'll attach myself to a militia after I know me and my own are taken care of. And then, hell yeah, I will, because, when we had a conversation about this before, and I don't remember if it was off air, on air, who it was with, but it was about the 3%ers and whatnot, and what that would look like now. And I don't think most people now have the balls to do that sort of thing, or most people now would want to leave their families, or something along those lines. But I would be one of them, because I want there to be a country. If something like this were to go down, it's just we're not. I'm past the point where I'm stomping my fist and bitching, and I'm trying to figure out what the next situation's gonna be. So I get where you are, getting pissed off and listening to us talking about this shit, because it still pisses me off. But I've been dealing with this a lot longer, and I want to say I'm calloused to it, because it still pisses me off. But I'm past the point of being pissed off. And now I'm trying to figure out, what am I going to do when the shit goes crazy? But I don't want to go off prematurely. I don't want to go when nothing substantial is happening at the moment.
I applaud you. I think you got your priorities straight. Not that my opinion matters, that you've got a plan, you're working on it, and you're focusing on things in the right order, and you're probably upset about the right things.
That's the most I've ever shared on here, so you guys better take it in.
You've said a lot. I was like, this guy's actually talking this time. This is crazy. No, I think you nailed it down right.
Well, I used to be guarded about what your plans are and whatnot, but when it comes down to it, I'm pretty sure most people, if they don't hash out the plan already, they're going to do the same exact thing I'm doing. And I'm pretty sure, they might not have had the forethought, but their first primary is going to be take care of me and my own, and that's normal. And then I have a feeling, if fighting goes down, you're going to know somebody attached to the fighting. And if you can't fight, that's fine. Take care of the people who also can't fight, kids, whatnot. And no matter what, it's gonna suck. But it's hard. It's damn hard to predict exactly how it's gonna go down. And the only thing I can do is try to get in there. Try to guess what's gonna happen. And that's to the point where I'm at now. It's not that I'm going, I don't really need my Second Amendment. And I think the 10th Amendment's been fucked up its ass, like, righteously. I see why you're pissed off. I understand it, and if you're a troll, I feel like a dumbass. But I get what you're bitching about. I understand it, but I'm to the point now where I'm trying to figure out what do we do from here. That's all I was trying to convey. Like, hey, Shamer might be a dirty Fed, but I'm not. That's all I'm saying.
Fed is Fed's the wrong government slur, man.
Maybe better.
So through a conversation, Ann, I was able to nail down what Ann was really. She was clearly upset at what I said, I guess, but she wants to know, how do we know when to stand out? How do we know when to fight, basically? My honest opinion is most of the time you're really going to know. So let's take this Boston bombing thing for a situation. Cops are coming through, telling you to get in your house, going through your yard, maybe they want to search your house. Okay. If you think they're infringing on your rights, you have every right to stand up for yourself and do everything you can to stop it. However, at the moment they're doing it, is not the time. One, obstruction of justice charge or anything like that could come in a heartbeat. And two, you think they're just going to listen to you and be like, oh, you know what, you're right. When has that ever happened? So that's not the time to do it. Or you don't want people to come to your house and get your guns. I don't want people coming to my house to get my guns. But if people come to your house to get your guns and there's some sort of military law enforcement, foreign, American, whatever, a bunch of dudes outside with guns and trucks, that's probably not the time to fight for it. You either weren't prepared for that or do something about it later, because in that situation, what good does it do you or yours to get killed or get arrested when you can go, you know what, I don't fucking like this shit. You let them fucking do it, and then you go find the people, work your network thing out, and go get all those guns or whatever crap you hid that you prepared for. But most of the time you're going to know. Like most of the stuff going on now. You got a real big issue with cops shooting civilians? Hell, I do too. They're fucking that up all the time. But it's not like you're going to cause a scene if you see that happen. Maybe you're brave enough to sit there with a YouTube and they tell you not to, and you sit there with your phone and video to get it out to the public. That's an honorable and great thing. But trying to get involved in that situation is probably a bad idea. But writing letters about it, going on Hangouts about it, writing your own blog or having your own website, like David has. David doesn't have a blog.
Just telling people you know.
Just telling people you know. You got to think strategically about it.
I had quite a few friends that had no idea until I started talking. Like, hey, did you know? Like, one buddy didn't have internet. He's a straight redneck. And once I told him all this, he was like, what the fuck? And what I'm doing to buy my time is I'm paying more attention to my local government, because there's no way in hell I can influence my Fed. And I've said this part before. This is the part I'm very open about. I love sheriff's departments. Pay attention to because the sheriff is voted in. Pay attention to that. Participate in that election. Participate in your local government, because eventually people from your local government can make it up to the Fed. And if they do, if it takes this long, maybe we could fix it somehow that way. Try to get decent people that you somewhat know in there. And just, I don't know. It's the only thing I can think of to do right now where I could maybe influence a change. I think voting on a local level still works. I don't know about federal, but voting on a local level I think still works. So maybe you can push decent people up there. That's just my opinion. And don't dwell on it, because I was about to go fucking nuts for a while.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I've also
think you're right too.
With the exact opposite story, where they've had these friends forever, neighbors for 20 years, worked with them, got to know them, all of a sudden just started talking about stuff, and then realized these are not the friends we want to have, because they think what we think is the complete wrong direction. But that's part of why talking. And like Ann made the point, well, in my county with my sheriffs, that's just not going to fucking happen. Well, Ann, great. But you're not the majority. Most people don't have that kind of luxury. Really, that's a luxury. If your whole county is going to stand together like that, the sheriffs are behind you, and especially if the local, like, I don't know how big your county is, but if there's more than one town with their own law enforcement and they're going to be part of that, great. That's a great thing, and it'd be great if everybody was like that. But the majority don't have that benefit or that luxury, especially if they're in larger counties or larger metropolitan areas.
Yeah, see, I'm another step. I'm trying not to fixate. I don't think anybody wants a war, especially a civil. I don't think anybody wants it. I'm still hoping that maybe somehow it'll fix itself and we'll get back to what we're supposed to be. Maybe somehow. But in the meantime, though, I'm in the process of getting my concealed weapons permit. So if shit goes down while I'm not home, I can get home. I'm in the process of, I'm still working within the rules of law. I'm just trying to make sure I'm ready, just in case shit does go down. And I've never thought about this until 2-3 years ago. So I get your frustration. I mean, the first year when I started reading about this crap and I started, actually studying my Constitution and seeing what the hell was going on, I freaked the fuck out too. And I was like, why aren't we going nuts? And then after a while, after you start seeing it all kind of work over time, you realize it's not the time to go nuts yet.
That's a very valid point, and the reality is that we certainly have rule of law, and it is alive and well. You have to be very careful on what fight you're going to fight and how loud you're going to be with that fight. When, just like Shammer said, I've said this certainly many times in the law enforcement aspect of it. You're pulled over on the side of the road. Certainly, they say they even want to search your vehicle. Tell them clearly, I'm not giving you consent to search my vehicle. If he goes ahead and actually go ahead and breach your right, certainly, and goes ahead and search the vehicle, do your job at that particular point and be a good witness, and you will take that later on and fight that in court. Now, the idea, of course, you have to drag that into court. It could be a lengthy, drawn-out thing, but you don't have much choice because it could end up backfiring on you badly. Look, the idea of preservation of your life is one thing that I would suggest. Yeah, you know what? If it comes down to your life or someone else's, you will fight that, and that's the time that you're not going to screw around with that, and you're not going to stand down. There is a way to stand up and stand up for what is right, and there's a wrong way to do it too. And so somebody says, well, when's the time? When do we actually start this? When do we actually stand up against our government? The idea is to do, well, what we're doing is trying to get more and more people. I always say it this way: we don't have enough people at the meeting yet to really start the meeting, so we're still gathering people to the meeting. Once we have them there, then you'll have the numbers to actually make a difference. But kind of like Shammer said, unfortunately, and you're not the majority. And that's it. And on a local level, just like Basic American said, that make a difference on your local level, especially if you've got a sheriff, for instance, that's going to stand behind you and make that difference and make your life a little bit nicer. I've gone and got a lot of criticism for bailing out early back in 2011, and I left. I left what I thought was a place I didn't want to be come 2016. Just a date, so to speak, that I've kind of come up with. And I said, I don't want to be there. And I definitely don't want to be in a position where I'm going to have to force people into a location that I wouldn't want to put my own family. And because I don't believe the system is well prepared for a situation that maybe on the horizon line. That's how I looked at it. So I bugged out early. And this way I'm on the outside of a problem, and I can actually see the problem from the outside and be able to gauge it. So if I have to get involved, at least I'm going to have a better perspective and the whole picture to actually make a better judgment call at the time, if the time comes.
And
that's how I look at it.
I really hope Ann's not a troll, because I spent a lot of time talking to one person, but I did the same exact thing. That's why I ended up coming into an AISOM show, because I started getting pissed off at what you guys are saying, and I was still in my, I was just pissed off, pretty much. There's no other way to describe it. When you start finally reading all this shit, you just get pissed. And I got to the point where if I seen like a war movie on, I'd get upset. Like, God damn it! I don't know. And I understand what she's doing, and I get it. That's why I hope this isn't horse shit. I'm actually talking to a person here, because I'll tell you what to do. I'll tell you exactly what I did, and I feel better. I know I'm not to the point where I'm comfortable yet, but I feel better with where I'm going right now. And the only main thing I could say is talk to everybody you know. I mean, you're gonna know some people who don't want any part of it, and fine, don't include them until you have to. But talk to other people. people you know, friends, once, and don't feel them out first because you don't want to come across as that crazy person. And you don't want the neighbors to think you're a crazy person because they'll just point a finger at you when it comes time. So not pick and choose. Yeah, I mean, then this is just shit I did, and I would imagine it depends on your local area, what kind of situation you're in. But I'm fairly certain, and I can't speak for anything. I know I'm in about the mid-east portion of Michigan, but if anything were to go down, Michigan's not going to roll over. I mean, there's enough of us. We have big rallies over this kind of shit. It'll be interesting. I mean, it's gonna suck, but it'll be interesting.
Well, with rule of law still in place, and certainly with a social game still very much at play. You could, if you stand out too much, it could end up really hurting you, especially depending on how big the area is or how loud you're shouting, who notices you. So it could really, truly work against you. You can start being a target, depending on how loud you're being too. So again, if you want to be a martyr to some degree, you better make sure it was well worth it in the end, because you could end up being very much an outcast, especially if you're in a small community. You may not get you might have doors being closed on you, and you still have a long journey ahead of you. And you might end up finding it's just you've been a target now and you have to move. I've seen examples of that, and it's not great. So everything you do and say, even certainly a platform like this, once this gets noticed in your small community, I can testify to this. It can start to play against you. Trust me on that. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, no offense by saying I hope you're not a troll, but I've seen you in a few chats, and you could only, I mean, if you look at it from my side of view, people like to just get people riled up on the panel, and I got a little riled, so that's the only reason why I was like, God, I hope I didn't just get suckered. And at the very least, and I applaud your skepticism, because you should be a skeptic in any information you get, especially if it's coming from a Fed. But if he was a Fed, even if you did, and I'm joking, but even if you did suspect he was a Fed, at least listen to what he's saying. I wouldn't call him out. I'd listen to what he said, and then make your own judgment call on what he said. And I'm not, again, Shamer, I'm just poking fun. I don't actually think you're a Fed. But
oh, I know, but I laugh at everybody anyway, even if they're serious, or even if they promote me. I don't care.
Well, I'm just saying, even if I thought you were a Fed, I'd still tell you I didn't think you were a Fed, because I'd still want to know what you had to say.
That would be the smart. That would be the smart play. If I was a Fed, I would be out there never commenting and keeping information, or I would come on here with a whole other background and never say I did A, B, C, and D.
Right. And now, how is this going to play out? Now, I mean, you are a Fed, and I've just acknowledged I know you're a Fed, but I said if I didn't know you're a Fed, I'd play it off like I said I wouldn't know you're a Fed, but now you know my game. Where do we go from here?
That's it.
Well, first thing we do is we have to hide, become Grayman. Although now I don't think we can trust that data because it was given to us by a Fed, which means it's probably going to tell us exactly what to do to get caught, which means do the exact opposite.
Yeah, use the same phone all the time. Leave it on with the GPS.
Yeah, don't burn your credit cards. Leave your receipts everywhere.
I fully expect Shamer to kick in my front door any minute now.
What was that, Shamer?
Smile at the camera every time you buy something.
Yes, that's always the best one.
When you hand out business cards, just take a photocopy of your driver's license. Just hand that out. Just in case people want to talk to you later.
Don't wear gloves when you're handling anything that might be picked up later.
That would be hilarious. I'm gonna smile at every camera I ever see. If they do start looking into me and they start looking up surveillance, they're gonna see me just grinning all the fucking everybody. What the hell is this guy? This guy's into something. I don't know. I'm gonna
found it extremely hilarious when Smurf said he trolls me.
Yeah. Look, for the record, I'm going to just break in here real quickly. As I've stipulated, and I have put it in the internal, Annie. Annie, I'm just suggesting that Annie is not a troll. She's been on very, a lot of shows.
Very valued member of the AISOM and AISOM Actor Chat.
Well, I apologize for suggesting that you could be, but you can see I got a little amped up, and in my patriotism, I I was really hoping I didn't get duped.
No. She's certainly not. She sent me private messages and such as well, and she's a strong contributor certainly to the external. And one day I hope that she does, have the ability to take a panel seat one time. The other thing is that I can say this as well. I've spoke with Shammer off air. I know a lot more about Shammer than he releases in these panels. I know a lot about his background and so on, and we have had hours of off air chats, just myself and him, and myself and a few other panel members in off air chats. And I can assure everybody, I find it almost insultive, quite frankly. And again, you can take that or you don't. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I find it quite insultive that somebody would suggest that I would be duped. And somebody can say, well, Luke, you're not perfect. You could be duped just the same. Or maybe you're a Fed too. And that's fine. But I can assure you that he's, well, that's it. He's just not. The reality is that, look, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, just because somebody was in that role, that what Shammer was in, or even myself, or whatever the case is, doesn't mean we were asleep the whole time we were in. It doesn't mean we agreed with everything. It doesn't mean that we blindly followed. Right? We can still operate within those roles and still have a moral compass about us and still bypass certain things that we don't find quite right and still do the job the way the job's supposed to be done. I've never shot anybody. I've never beat anybody. Ticketed somebody, arrested somebody for a victimless crime. Yeah, I would probably say that I've been guilty of that, but again, the law supported it. But again, it was done with morals, certainly, and with discretion that was responsible discretion, certainly. And again, I think strongly self-selection on the part of the individual that was being dealt with was very strongly at play. So having said that, like I said, playing aside and so on, when somebody comes on to these particular chats, take it as you want. If you don't like the information, if you don't want to believe in the information, don't. You're your own individual. Look, I share the information about how you can interact with police officers, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. I say, look, if you're going to be arrested by an individual police officer, listen to the nice man. He's going to read you your rights and caution, and there's some good suggestions in there. Don't talk to the police. He'll tell you that every time when he arrests you, and he's supposed to. Certainly, do I believe there's law enforcement out there that are very, very bad and act outside of the realm of being responsible, justified, and lawful? Abso-freaking-lutely. And Matt has brought many, many cases to the surface. And really enlightened myself on what the tyranny at play in the United States is. And I would like to say that it's not that high of a number in Canada. Does it exist here? Yes, it does, certainly. And there is specific cases that have gone through, but they are held accountable because of the system we have up here. When it comes down to Shammer, again, I'll let him speak for himself. But when he is sharing information that I think that all of us can utilize to a degree, especially the gray man aspect, and that's good information. I don't see anything that he has said so far that would make him a Fed or not for the betterment of us as a group of people who are having an informed discussion. At best, what he's doing is saying, I'm going to try to separate fact from fiction with everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, you believe this, and I can tell you from my experience, from my knowledge, and what I firmly believe as an individual with a bit of knowledge background, that's just not right. It's not fact. And I'm going to tell you my opinion. If you don't want to take it for what it is, you don't have to, certainly. But I think all he's suggesting is, and certainly a lot of us at times, is, okay, so now you have your side of it, your viewpoint of it. Now you have his. You have maybe another various panel member. Now go do your homework. Try to validate what Shammer has said or disprove what he said and be responsible with it. That'll give you, the viewer, the listener, and syndication, whatever the case is, I think a responsible approach to what you are going to do for you being your best chance as being your plan A. And that's just how I look at it. So, yeah, I'll leave it there. That's my little 2 cents. Hopefully I've said that so it's coherent and responsible. And anybody can disagree with me at this point. Go ahead and type away.
I totally disagree.
I second that motion. I disagree. All in favor of disagreeing with Luke, say aye.
Aye.
Hear, hear.
He's a hypocrite. He disagrees with himself.
Yeah.
If you
Ladies and
are
gentlemen, is how
Fed,
you
son of a
illegally
bitch.
trap a police officer.
If you are a Fed, you got us all duped.
Go back and read Matt and Bite Enabled's comments about me. I'm not sure which one's better, but I like them both.
I like bites. You're a shapeshifter. Because I was gonna make a joke about Matt and be like, Matt's got more views. If anybody was a Fed. Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, I like Matt's. That's pretty good. Yeah.
He's got the money to travel, and yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got those government dollars.
Because it takes quite the wallet to vacation in Ohio.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's Matt. You guys are poking at the right. He's deep undercover. We sniffed him out.
Yeah, that's it.
No, and most of us don't agree with each other. Some shit, I was poking fun at you, Shamer, but right now, some shit Shamer says I don't agree with. And there's a lot of things I don't agree with what fucking Banter says. And I really can't stand, what the hell's your name now? Truth About Politics. I can't stand that guy, but I still talk to him. You see,
Well, the thing is, too, is you should always challenge the information. Unless you, for a fact, know something is truthful and factual because of your experience or knowledge or training or understanding, not a belief. You should not believe that anybody's right. You should, if the information is important enough, the subject is important enough, and it's something new, or people are throwing out numbers and statistics, or this country's doing that, or this law's about that, you should take notes and go look it up and form your opinion later.
That's a very good point. I'll give you a perfect example of that. One of the sites that I'm on, and Shammer, I believe you're on too. One of the sites, they had an article about a DoD directive. I forget what. Well, I can actually tell you what number the DoD directive is. Basically, they said it outlined a plan, Obama's plan, funny enough, to take everyone's guns away and declare martial law. And they kept referring to what the DoD directive said. And, well, I looked it up. DoD directive number 3025.18. You can look it up online and you can get it. It's pretty easy to get. I mean, I did. If I got it, then certainly it's not quite hard to find. I read it. It says nothing like that. Absolutely nothing about taking guns. As a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. The entire directive is about establishing an authority over a certain area in case everybody's dead. In case all the civilian, constitutionally appointed government is dead. For example, if your mayor, your entire city council, your entire sheriff's department, even the dog catcher, if they're all dead, then, and only then, are they given permission to establish a military government. And only until the disaster or crisis is over with. Which means they're finally doing their job.
And this is why I participate in these chats, because I learn something new every day. I didn't know the dog catchers were elected, and that's one local, piece of politics I haven't partaked in yet. I should pay attention to that.
Is that the thing from last week that you sent to Luke?
What was that?
Is that the directive you sent to Luke like last week sometime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreement. I like it. No, you gotta read your stuff. You gotta read it. Anybody can take my word for it. For example, if you're new to the chat, you're going to assume since I'm the host that I'm actually pretty knowledgeable. And so you'll believe me when I say that the Chihuahuas are going to take over Afghanistan. It's possible. Very, very possible. But
they are some devilish little bastards.
Piranhas with legs, man. I'm telling you, piranhas with legs. Ugh. Go look it up. You'll see the theories all over the line. All over. You can either believe me or you can go do your homework.
I apologize for my rant, but when I first started watching the chats and everything, that was the ones that I wasn't finding, was people going, okay, now you're aware, what now, type thing, and I kind of bumbled around on the internet, and I just kind of drew my own conclusions, which is what I usually do. Usually I would consider myself somewhat informed. Like I'm not. I do my research and whatnot. Yeah, no. I just wanted to make sure, like, if you don't have a plan and you're just freaking the hell out like I did, I wanted to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, like, just in case you need some sort of direction.
Well, it brings up a good point. Like, one of the things we always talk about is they come to your house to get your guns. What's your plan for that? If your plan is the response that I read a lot of people give, I'm not giving my guns. That's not a plan. That's a statement you hope you can follow through on. You need to have
That's
a
a
plan in place.
kamikaze statement.
Yeah. What?
Yeah,
My dog smelled the peanut butter. I'm busted.
that does it every time.
And I'm very hesitant to jump and think there's going to be a gun grab soon. And again, this is something I was going to bring up earlier. I meant to put it in my notes. I didn't forget, but I forgot to. But I don't know who I was talking to. It could have been Banter, or I talked to a couple other groups too. But we were talking about what if they weren't trying to take our guns, but they were trying to arm us. And if that was the intention, they're doing a pretty good fucking job at it. And that was another like hypothetical situation we were discussing. We were just picking at it, like, what if this is the scenario? And it was talking about like maybe they want more guns in the American hands. Maybe that's the way to do it. And I stepped back from it and I was like, holy shit, that's somewhat plausible.
I don't necessarily agree with either side, but that argument makes more sense because I know the government's stupid. We all know that. But I don't think they're so stupid as to continue to tell us they want to make more gun control laws and try to push it through when, for what, like a decade now? At least 5 or 6 years? Every time they do something, gun sales go through the roof. And what was it, like 3 years ago?
I want to say it was
$100 AR, like $2,500 and people were buying it. Ammo sales go through the roof. I think they would have seen the pattern by now. So
it's got to be longer.
They really wanted to
remember Y2K, and my dad was a big Y2K nut. That's why I know what I know about the Constitution and everything, because he thought everything was going to fall then. And, like, they got to know when stuff like this comes up, we arm up.
And there was a realistic argument for that. I mean, as far as the economy, not like meteors and aliens, but they prepared for it.
Yeah. But basically all the Y2K was about was that the computers would be confused about what time it was because they weren't programmed correctly. And so that little clock at the bottom right hand of your screen would be confused. It wouldn't be the right time. Now that could possibly translate over to the stocks.
They've been forever, not all of it, but some of the computer systems, and I don't know, some people said it was banking. I don't know which ones. Their setup was to use 2 digits instead of 4 for the year, so it was going to roll over back to 0, and there was all kinds of theories about what that could do, some of which were very realistic for computers. So they had to spend years writing all these codes and doing all this stuff to not interrupt, like banking and all this other stuff, to fix it. That was only one piece of it, but there was a real threat there.
Why wasn't there ever a movie made on that? Because I feel like that would make a terrific movie if Y2K were to go down.
Oh, there probably is one.
I was going to say, I think there was some, I don't know which one, though. Probably a B movie. I don't know.
Those are the best ones. You can't get a good apocalypse film unless it's B-rated.
Yeah,
I think I've seen some kind of video of it.
But yeah, when all these theories, when you look at them, when they really start to, when you look at the best, or not the best angles, when you start to plug in factors that make sense and all of the factors start lining up, and it starts to make sense, maybe you got to step back and say, wait a minute, maybe I was wrong, maybe it's something completely different. I'm not saying it is. I'm not even going to say there's anything going on. I'm not that smart yet.
That's the problem. There's a lot of possibles. There's a lot of, hey, maybe the government's preparing for a meteor to hit the planet, and they want to, that sort of martial law, or hey, maybe the government wants to take our guns, or maybe the government's just douches, and they think we're douches, and they want to help try to control the douchebaggery of our country. Or maybe there is it's impossible to guess what the hell is going to go down and when. So I'm just kind of, just kind of keep my general plan and try to make it all purpose, I suppose.
There's a good point there, though. like, I think we all generally agree somewhere along the lines that either the economy has to crash, or it'll be a depression, or worse than 2008, or we turn into a third world country, whatever. We all agree that there's something there that pretty much has to happen or will happen. I don't necessarily think it'll be this fall, just because I've heard it's going to be this fall for several years now. But there's economists, educated people, stock market history of other countries having the same thing. There's records and information there of how repetitive it is. Like David says all the time, it repeats itself, that it's going down the same path. So it makes sense to believe that's going to happen. It may never happen, but it makes sense to believe that. There's evidence there. But to just say that, well, Jade Helm means martial law, I mean, that's all you're going with.
Yeah,
There's nothing else there to back that up.
That's where I was going with that. I lost my train of thought, and you picked it back up. Thank you, sir. What freaked me out on the internet is I found all these different conclusions people were drawing, but they all somewhat make sense. And that's what got me, and I was like, holy crap, they could do this or this or this or this or this or this or this, and they all, like, they worked. Like, that could happen. And then so now everybody's making their own conclusions, and they're hitting on it, and they're like, hey, this could happen, and then they see just that, and they're like, oh my god, this is going to happen, when this over here, EMP attack, could very plausibly happen, and so this person's going, oh my god, this is going to happen. And when I first started watching these videos, until I figured that out, I was just like, holy crap, all this shit's going to go down? This is going to be nuts. Another thing I want to bring up, kind of off topic. I was reading, and I was on an Australian news site, which is always fun to read Australian news. And they were talking about I want to say it was Okinawa in Japan, how we're building a U.S. base. We're in the process of moving a base. That's what it was. We're relocating a base to an island there, and they don't want us to. But we're saying it's fundamental to us protecting them according to our treaty, yada yada. Hey, anybody got any information on that? Because I haven't been able to find anything else. And the sources to that article, I believe, was a local newspaper, so I don't know how reliable that is.
So we want to move, or are moving a base near Australia, and they don't do it?
No, it was near Japan. It's all in Japan. It was just a news article in Australia that was covering this story, and it was a base I think is either in Japan or around it. It said the city, but I don't know anything about Japan. But they were talking about moving it to Okinawa, and it was going to be bigger. And Japanese people are protesting and shit and against it. But I guess we're just doing it anyway.
I'll have to look. I mean, if we are just doing it anyway, then the agreement's already been made with the government, and people aren't going to like it. I mean, hell, if we pulled out of Japan, there'd be protests too.
Man, Mark says they were forced to move the base after Marines kept raping the locals. Okay, I could see that.
Well, there has been instances of that in Korea and Japan, as well as Iraq, Afghanistan.
I know Japan really doesn't want us there at all, but I don't think strategically we could lose that, could we? I mean, isn't that kind of a vital area?
Yeah, strategically we don't want to give that up. And Japan and China aren't the friends they used to be, so we definitely don't want to give that up.
I mean, that doesn't make it right, but I'm just trying to figure out, why they're doing what. No, it's interesting, and it's bizarre too, trying to make sense of this, because I have no desire to acquire property and stuff. So in my head, I'm going, who gives a shit? Get that base out of Japan.
Well,
but yeah,
I mean, off the top of my head, all the stuff in the South China Sea would make sense. I mean, to finally say that you're going to move the base, I mean, it's been talked about probably for at least a year, is my guess. And granted, we're just now hearing about South China Sea, but we've known that that's been coming. We had to have. Stuff like that just typically doesn't happen. Usually the government's following the developments for some time, even if it's just a few months. So there's probably a relation there. It could have been planned for a long time, for all I know. I don't really know. Justin, what's up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, congrats, Justin. I haven't talked to you since.
Time to get rid of that sympathy pregnancy, huh? Where'd he go?
He must be having connection issues or something. No, that was just something I don't like when I read like Australian news. Australian news seems to be way out there, or at least the papers I find. So I was just trying to fact check a little bit, see if anybody else heard anything about that.
I wrote it down. Hopefully, I'll read it before tomorrow.
Last I heard, the Japanese government was trying to force that base on that locale, or I don't know what the city's name is, but I'm pretty sure they're going to force it through.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. They were talking about putting it on an island, so maybe they want to put them all on an island so they can't, rape anybody.
I'm pretty sure there's girls in Okinawa.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess they don't really care about those ones.
But I mean, it's over there. That's a huge issue. I had a guy I helped put in jail for 30 years. He's still sitting in the United States Penitentiary. Raped a male Korean augmentee to the U.S. Army. They're called Katusas at knife point. And they got him like 2 years later, 3 years later. And he had to do his first 3 years in a Korean prison.
Ew. What about North Korea? Is North Korea a direct threat anymore? I mean, I've noticed everything kind of settled. But they're still crazy, but I've noticed everything kind of settled down over there.
Yeah, go look at the history reports in the last few years of them missiles and how much farther they're going. There's a threat there. They're a dangerous nation.
Is somebody who's helping them? Somebody's got to be helping them, because I was reading a couple articles about how they went from like they were 50 years being a nuclear threat, and then they dropped to like 10 years being a nuclear threat, and then they were testing missiles. Like, somebody's got to be giving them a hand.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't really remember. I know a lot of times a lot of certain countries tend to have the same opinions, like Venezuela, Russia, Iran, a lot of times have the same opinions about us. North Korea's in that bunch sometimes. Syria, 5 years ago, Syria was still in the top probably 3 or 5 threats, the way we looked at things. Now not so much, obviously. But I don't know, honestly, off the top of my head, who helps them. I'd have to go reread that. If David was here, he'd probably just rattle it off. I'm looking in the external to see if he's trolling out there and throws an answer in, but...
Oh, there was one thing about what you guys were talking about earlier with the martial law thing. I was sitting there thinking, about the economic side of it, because if you think about what everyone's dependent on, a paycheck. What happens when everything breaks down, martial law is established? How long are the mercenaries going to be loyal to whoever when there's no purchasing power?
That'd be another interesting dynamic, because the militias they're not really going to be, fighting for money. That'd be interesting. Shammer, you seem to be our resident expert.
I was looking for something. What impact about martial
law? If everything broke down to a point where that was established, and the economy collapsed, where would be the incentive for them to still be cops or military or whatever when there was nothing, no pay, no way to buy anything, and it was basically you're on your own, everyone's on their own?
Yeah, that'd be pretty widespread. I mean, initially, let's say the whole economy collapses tomorrow, right? The banks are shut down, utilities shut off. I mean, initially, people are still going to try and enforce law, but majority of it's going to be gone after a month. So it's going to depend regionally, I think. Like any sort of organized crime, gangs, whatever, are probably going to be the ones in major metropolitan areas that set up and control black and gray markets, or black markets anyway. It's just, I don't know, I think that's a community dependent thing, depending on how big your community is, where you're at, what's there, what's happening to you. Just the economy collapses, there's no other catastrophe. Okay, are you really close to a military base? Because that's going to have a different effect on you. Maybe they have martial law, or maybe they just go out and help you. Or you're out in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of miles from any major sort of support, you might be asked out on your own for a long time. But I think people were, I mean, a lot of, in the long term, or at least the midterm, some people will revert to trade work. There'll be needs for that eventually at some point everywhere. You know, people will still for a long time find value in bullion, whether it's gold or silver or platinum, trading skills. I think that's what a lot of it will be. Some people, like, let's say the military stays together, a good portion of it, and they keep doing military stuff. They're just going to keep getting told they get paid. And for all we know, they get paid. Money might not be worth anything, but they may not know that. I mean, it's hard. That's really hard to say.
Maybe they'll pay him with all that gold that's stored up in Fort Knox.
Yeah. I don't know, but I don't think the gold is there anymore.
Real quick, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say there's other stuff that's there, but I'm not too sure that gold's still there.
Huh. Maybe it's all the aliens and they moved the gold to Area 51 to throw off suspicion.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, because, you know, that's a pretty remote place in Kentucky. Nobody wants to get stationed there, so that'd be a good plan.
Luke, you good? Does it keep booting you for some reason?
Yeah, Justin was having a problem too.
I'm having some issues. I don't know if it's the internet or what. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know. 1:30 a.m. here. I had the same problem last week, I believe. So I don't know what's going on. Might be doing what do you guys call it? An IP address switch up maybe or something. I don't know.
You never know.
Last time it wouldn't even let me back in again. For a while, it wouldn't even let me back in. It certainly would. My internet left. So.
Yeah.
On the martial law subject, though, I went and looked it up. Johnny Master at Arms Guns does the Conundrum Show. I think it's number 26, but it could be 25. And if you go look it up, just jump right to the middle or farther, because I don't come on initially in the beginning of it. But we end up talking about martial law, and I spend quite a while talking about the steps of martial law, what would really happen, how things would happen in your area, you know, how the control would be put in place, how the flow of goods and military and security aspects and timelines for how long you have, how things would plan out, how you would get what you have access to, all this kind of stuff. There's like a 20-minute discussion on it plus questions later.
That was on Johnny Master at Arms.
Yeah, I think it's 26, but it could be 25. But we ended up talking about that.
So I wonder how long they could go before they were unable to resupply themselves.
Well, part of the discussion I talk about that depends on the situation. So let's take Air Force bases, for example. If planes are still moving, that's the number one way to move mass goods quickly to an area. So that's going to have a bigger impact in a remote location. But good, bad, and different for why they're there. They're going to get a certain amount of support from the community, whether the community likes it or not, if they want to get it. Most bases get their water from the community. Most bases get their electricity from the community and can easily control those locations. And even if they're somewhat destroyed or interrupted, generators. Military has a lot of fuel, and they'll power down to, you know, important servers and officers who don't need computers only to waste power and not give it to the people who live on the base, probably. You know, they could go steal the fuel out of the gas stations. That probably happen. So, you know, if there's, like in Tucson, like most major cities, there's, I think, a Walmart or Target distribution center there, you know, with all the trucks and big warehouses. They just go in there. I mean, there's all kinds of non-perishables in there they could take for food. I mean, that's the place to go, would be warehouses. Costco, Sam's Club, you got any of those? A couple Costco's in Tucson. Those get jacked. It's a lot of food.
Would they take them, or would they pay the owners of the store or the store directly?
Well, they would roll up and load up, but in an environment where it wasn't total against the populace type things, they would at least tell them they would be compensated. That's pretty common. I mean, the military does it every time they hit a donkey or shoot a cow or kill a sheep or blow a door up or ram a gate. People get compensated for it. You know, I bought a lot of tires, shot out a lot of tires. If we felt bad about it, we stopped and gave them money or something. So that's possible. But at best, they'll tell you at the time, you know, here's a piece of paper in my name, go to this place and talk to them, and be something like that. They just roll up and take it. And quite honestly, I'm not concerned about the idea of the military rolling up and raiding Costco. I think that's a given. If that happened almost immediately, I would consider that an issue. Not because I don't have access to Costco, because that means one of two, if not both things. There is no immediate resupply plan for them, which is bad, because either it's much worse than we know, or they're on their own, which can put them out of control or put them in a dangerous situation where a tactical disadvantage if there's a foreign nation. The other thing is it tells me is even if they have a supply system, they're going to be there long term because they need all that extra stuff. So a couple months down the road, they decide to take out Costco that they've been guarding. That's one thing. Take it out in the first 3 or 4 days, I think that's a lot worse.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that those big old semi trucks, they're getting about 6 miles per gallon, and they're going to burn roughly probably about 120 gallons a day just to operate normally. And people don't even contemplate how many trucks it takes to keep a warehouse full or to keep the gas stations, the truck stops full of fuel. I doubt it if we would make it a week before everything just completely broke down.
Yeah, I think generally that's a true statement. And quite honestly, smaller communities will probably do better initially. Realistically, you're probably by percentage going to run out of supplies just as quickly in a small town as you will in a large city, just due to population and availability of goods. But smaller communities tend to be more friendly, tend to be more isolated, probably won't be people going out there quite as quickly. Now, in the long term, they're at a serious disadvantage unless they're prepared for it. But I think they would survive longer. So, I mean, we see what happens with riots when a cop shoots somebody. I mean, imagine what would happen in these cities if that shit went down. I mean, look how fast those riots got out of control, and then they built. So what would happen to those places? But then smaller towns, they probably wouldn't have riots. They would probably last quite a bit longer.
Have any of you seen a TV series called Jericho?
Yeah, I turned Matt onto it. That is a great show.
Yeah. The first season of it, actually the entire series seemed to be, to me, it seemed to be the best model for what would happen in a total shift situation.
Yeah, I mean, some of the points they make in there is they're on their own for a long time before the military shows up. And then when the military does show up, there's different militaries. There's already different governments in place. They have no idea. And those governments don't like each other. And, you know, like, there's a town close by that they have a lot of buddies and friends in, but they don't go and make contact with these guys forever. And that becomes bad for them, to where they're basically become an enemy. And there's shortages of medical supplies and how people have to go to these other towns where nobody's at to try to raid clinics, get medicine that they need in this town, and then the bad things that happen then. Or we need information in this small town, so they send people out in cars in all these different directions, and some guys don't come back, or some guys find out different things. And it shows the value of skills that certain people have that you don't think about. You know, like one guy was a pilot and nobody really knew, and he found some aircraft that landed on the highway, so he got the flight data recorder, which gave them a lot of information. But you know somebody knows how to do that. So I like the show. I think there's a lot of great things in there that it brings out, especially the different personalities of people and who turns into an asshole and who becomes helpful and how people view the world.
You sons of bitches. See, I've never seen this show, and now Smurf's out there saying it ends with a civil war and you're giving away important plot points, and no, I'm not going to go watch it now.
No, you should, because
you need to watch
he's
it.
right, but
It's
the
an
way
awesome
the
show.
second season ends is almost in a hurry, and I think with less episodes, basically the show wasn't going to continue, so they kind of got to a point in a hurry. But that's not even a big deal to know that.
I was just playing. I'm going to ask you a stupid question. What's going on with all these Walmart tunnel things going on out here in the chat?
Oh,
those
when
are
the whole Walmart shut down, you know, the 6 or 8 Walmarts.
I remember
or
it shut down. I was thinking maybe there was something else that caused the conspiracy thing to go out or what.
No, one of the things people came with where when they talked about like DHS, it started with DHS and it was the military was going to use the Walmarts.
Right.
They were saying they have underground tunnels, and then the underground tunnels connected to military installations or connected to other Walmarts, or I don't know. That's what I presume they're making fun of that idea.
The Walmart thing happened, and it's all down south. It's not close to me, and I was like, wow, that's at the very least that's interesting. And but there was a Menards right down the corner from me, and unbeknownst to me, it shut down early. It was for 2 days. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay, that's a little close to home. And I was like, what's going on here? And then I got a little bit concerned. And then I found out that our Menards actually closed down because they had a bomb threat. That somebody was going to blow up Menards for some fucking reason. I don't know if you guys know that's like a Home Depot or a Lowe's.
Yeah. No, that's important
one of my
to know that
favorite
you go
stores.
find that information out, because I presume it's reasonable that most people in your situation, if they had not heard about this Walmart thing or it hadn't happened, probably wouldn't have had the immediate reaction of it being too close to home. But even subconsciously, you begin to think that way because all the stuff, even if you don't believe everything, conspiracies about Walmart. But you did the thing that some people don't do, is they go find out.
It was very interesting at first. I was like, what the fuck? That is strange. Like, yeah. At the very least, it was a very poor business move.
I'll tell you guys what the tunnels underneath all the Walmarts are. They're really large hadron colliders that are trying to create multiple black holes across the U.S.
That's pretty good. Did you just come up with that, or?
Yeah, about
Oh.
an hour, well, almost 2 hours ago during the AISOM chat.
I like that.
It's going to swallow every patriot movement and militia member up into those black holes,
Yeah,
while at the same time releasing Ebola and reptiles.
They're gonna develop a black hole that's gonna take your guns away.
Well, not only that, it'll take you away too. It'll strip you of your identity. It'll put a chip in your hand and your forehead and make you go about your business.
That's probably what's happening to all these thumb drives that keep going missing.
Hey, where'd mine go? Oh, wait, never mind. Close call there. Whew. Almost. They almost got me. I got him this time. I cheated him this time. They almost got me.
I love when I read a story or I watch a story, and at first I'm like, what the hell is this? And then it takes a crazy twist where it's like, and then reptilians crawl out of the Walmart tunnels, and you're like, oh, damn it. Like, oh, shit. All right, never mind.
It's always good till at one point when reptiles start crawling out of Walmart.
They're warm-blooded. I'm not gonna lie. I'm up north. That's fine. Let the reptilians come out. It's cool.
Anybody want a statue of a crocodile?
Yeah, just when you don't look under any rocks or anything like that, or when it's warm out, they'll be sunbathing in the road. So just drive around a bit.
Oh yeah. I think I'm going to, unless anybody here in the panel has any objections or in the outside, I think we're going to go ahead and might as well be outside. Says Walcern. Playing Walmart. Walcern. I think I'm gonna go ahead and in the chat here, and gonna go around to all these very, very good people here in the internal. Starting with Mark, go ahead. You want to do an outro? Give your channel a little bit of a plug there, and any closing thoughts?
No, I think it's all pretty much been said. It was good chat. I enjoyed listening.
Well, I enjoyed having you on, sir. 420 Homestead, I know you popped in a while ago. You haven't said anything. You have anything to
Yeah, I
say?
tried to get on earlier. I was having a little bit of problems with my, I don't know, audio or something. But yeah, 420 Homestead on YouTube. Sorry I didn't get on, get on sooner. But
Well, thanks for joining anyways. I am Shammer. Now, there is a warning, folks. Before you listen to what he says, remember he is a Fed.
no, I heard he
Yeah.
works at Walmart.
I'm a
I heard he was a Walmart
reptilian
employee.
federal spy for the Walmart tunnels.
Yeah.
He's going to eat your brains during the apocalypse. Or something. Whatever Matt said, that's the closest thing to reality. Yes, I am Shammer. I have the Gray Man series. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. You probably like it. Most people do. I haven't done any recently, but there's some more coming. I'm working on developing another series I'm going to do. So that'll be coming shortly. And I'll probably see everybody tomorrow or some other panel somewhere down the road.
Well, thank you for joining. Your insight has been most invaluable. Basic American, sir, thank you for joining the chat. Any closing thoughts, arguments, insults, you name it, go ahead, sir.
I wouldn't bother subbing me, because this is all I usually do is sit in on chats. I got one video out. You want to see a decent cheap pistol? That's my one video. I did. Other than that, this is all I do. But I'm a Jeep guy, so eventually I've been kicking around the idea of starting a Jeep channel, because I own 3 Jeeps, and buddies of mine got them, and I've been kicking around that idea, and eventually I might do some other political deals, but most of them are already done, and I'm going to do the same thing everybody else is doing. So I'm still playing with the idea of what to do with my channel. So, yeah, but that's it.
Well, thank you for coming on the chat. 420, you wanted to say something again?
Yeah, someone just mentioned it out in the external about egg prices going sky high right now. And I don't know if anybody's been talking about that, but there's a bird flu outbreak right now. There's not even any fucking eggs on the shelf at the local store here. So stock up on that, and chicken meat is going to be the next thing to fucking either go sky high or just not be on the shelf. So go buy it now or get yourself some laying hens or something.
Bullshit. I love chicken.
Well, I got a bunch of brand new chicks sitting behind me right here, and I got my laying hens out back, so I'm not going to be needing
We're going to
any
work
eggs.
something out.
Don't worry about it, Shammer. McDonald's is still going to have the McChicken. They're going to have it. Don't worry about it. They got their own chick. You'll be fine.
Okay.
But I just wanted to throw that out there because that's going to be a problem for some people coming up soon, so watch out.
Thank you for that information. And Justin Smith just left. It's a great chat. I enjoyed having you all on the panel. AISOM, an Informed State of Mind channel, he could not join back in. His internet kept kicking him off. So if he were here, I know he would end with something spectacular, like a famous quote or a good quote or some sort of quote. Unfortunately, I don't have any quotes. So just pretend that you heard Luke say something really, really profound, and that's going to be the end of this Truth About Politics chat. Everybody take care, be safe, and read the Constitution.